Welcome to today's story, the classic tale of the weeping Banshee. When confronted with the choice of beauty or death, which one would you take? Do try not to scream too loud. The air in the damp forest hung heavy with an otherworldly stillness as Liam, a young man with a heavy heart, navigated the winding paths, seeking solace from the torment of his recent discovery, his girlfriend's infidelity. It had left him shattered, and the ancient trees seemed to whisper their condolences. As Liam approached the crumbling old bridge, the rumours of its haunting echoed in his ears. His curiosity overcame caution, drawing him closer to the eerie structure. The moonlight filtered through the dense foliage, casting an eternal glow on the moss-covered stones. It was then that he heard the faint sound of a woman weeping, a soft, melodic lament that seemed to beckon him. Intrigued and empathetic, Liam followed the haunting cries until he reached the bridge's edge. There, bathed in the moon's pale light, stood Siobhan, a vision of beauty with cascading dark hair and eyes that glistened with tears. Her presence was captivating, and Liam felt an inexplicable urge to comfort her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. Siobhan turned, her eyes meeting Liam's with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. "I just found out my fiancé was cheating on me," she confided, her voice carrying the weight of heartbreak. A shared pain forged an instant connection between them. Siobhan's gaze held a magnetic allure that drew Liam in, and he found himself captivated by her sorrowful beauty. "I could use some company," Siobhan suggested, her lips curving into a faint smile. Liam, compelled by unexplainable force, nodded in agreement. Together, they left the bridge behind, wandering deeper into the forest. In the heart of the ancient forest, Siobhan led Liam to an empty clearing. The moonlight barely penetrated the thick canopy overhead, casting shadows that danced with an eerie rhythm. As Siobhan's features began to warp and age, Liam's confusion turned to horror. The once beautiful woman now bore the visage of a spectral hag, her eyes glinting with malevolent hunger. "Do you still find me beautiful?" Siobhan asked, her voice now a haunting melody that resonated through the darkened grove. A shiver ran down Liam's spine, but a lingering enchantment compelled him to answer, "Yes." At that moment, the illusion shattered, and Siobhan transformed into her true form, a banshee, her undead visage twisted by centuries of sorrow and despair. With a blood-curdling scream, she lunged at Liam, her ethereal form enveloping him in a suffocating embrace. As the echoes of his screams mingled with the haunting cries of the forest, Siobhan's insatiable hunger claimed another soul, perpetuating her quest for eternal youth amidst the shadows of the forbidden forest. The village lay shrouded in darkness, as the echoes of the banshee's wails reverberated through the ancient trees of the forbidden forest. The villagers, familiar with the haunting sounds, exchanged knowing glances. The banshee had fed again, and a sense of foreboding settled over the village. Meanwhile, in a quaint Irish town, a couple on an intimate trip found themselves entangled in a bitter argument. The air crackled with tension as harsh words and accusations flew between them. The escalating dispute reached a breaking point when the man, overwhelmed by rage, struck his girlfriend. She, in turn, ran off into the night, declaring that she never wanted to see him again. Alone and fuming, the man began the lonely trek back to his hotel. The shadows seemed to dance with his turmoil, and the distant cries of the banshee merged with the echoes of his own heartache. Lost in his thoughts, he stumbled upon a narrow path leading into the depths of the forest. As he walked, the haunting weeping grew louder, drawing him closer to its source. There, under the moonlight canopy, stood Siobhan, her eyes glistening with tears, her beauty unparalleled. The man, captivated by her presence, couldn't help but ask if she was okay. "I just ended things with my fiancé," Siobhan confessed, her voice carrying a delicate vulnerability. "I don't want to be alone right now." Sympathy welled up in the man's heart as he found himself agreeing to accompany her. The forest seemed to close around them as they walked, the shadows casting an otherworldly spell. Siobhan's enchanting beauty held the man in a trance, blurring the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. "Now we're going to have a short scare break while you ease your nerves. So while you're waiting, don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and stab that subscribe button right now. As doing so, you'll really help the professor spread his shadow of evil. Now, let's get back to the story." They arrived at the crumbling bridge, its archaic stones whispering secrets of ancient curses. Siobhan, feigning fragility, asks the man to hold her, and his arms encircled her. He felt the cold touch of bony fingers, and an unsettling realization crept over him. "Do you find me beautiful?" Siobhan asked, her voice echoing with a haunting familiarity. Caught in the gaze of the Banshee's twisted visage, the man hesitated. The illusion shattered, revealing Siobhan's true form, the Banshee. Her eyes now pools of darkness. With a blood-curdling scream, she lunged at him, sealing his fate in the haunted embrace of the forbidden forest. The village, miles away, could almost sense the feast of sorrow that unfolded, as the wails of the Banshee mingled with the agonized cries of a broken heart. In the village, nestled at the outskirts of the forbidden forest, the wails of the Banshee echoed through the night, signaling another feeding. The villagers, long acquainted with the spectral presence that haunted their surroundings, exchanged somber glances. The curse endured, and the ancient woods held their secrets tight. Meanwhile, across the seas, 3 intrepid souls embarked on a journey to Ireland, drawn by the haunting legend of the Banshee. Among them were Dr. Michael Brennan, a folklore expert with a penchant for unraveling ancient mysteries, Sarah O'Connor, an investigative journalist fascinated by the supernatural, but a bit skeptical, and Liam McCarthy, a young man who had recently lost a friend to the eerie cries of the Banshee. As their plane touched down on Irish soil, the trio exchanged excited glances, their anticipation heightened by the rich tapestry of legends that awaited them. In the rental car winding through the lush countryside, Michael began to weave the tales of the Banshee. Legend has it that the Banshee, Siobhan, was cursed centuries ago, Michael explained, his eyes glinting with scholar enthusiasm. She feasts on the sorrow of those recently heartbroken, trapping them in an eternal cycle of despair. Sarah, scribbling notes in her notebook, leaned forward, and the village believes her cries signal another soul claimed. Michael nodded. Yes, the villagers have come to recognize the wails as a harbinger of tragedy. Each time someone breaks her heart, the Banshee feeds, ensuring she remains eternally youthful. Liam, staring out at the passing landscape, shivered. "I heard about a guy who went missing here. They found him near the old bridge, his face frozen in terror." Sarah, intrigued, pressed further. "So how do we break the curse?" Michael sighed, his gaze distant. "That's the mystery. Some say the only way to break the curse is to confront the Banshee in her true form and reject her, but it's easier said than done." As they drove closer to the heart of the forbidden forest, the legend seemed to come alive. The car wound its way through narrow roads, flanked by ancient trees that whispered tales of centuries past. The Banshee's cries grew louder as they approached the village, an eerie soundtrack to their quest for answers. The trio steeled themselves for the challenges that lay ahead, determined to unravel the mysteries of the haunted forest and put an end to the curse that had gripped the land for so long. The quaint Irish village welcomed the trio as they pulled up to the local hotel, its time-worn facade bearing witness to centuries of untold stories. The Banshee's cry still lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the curse that gripped the land. Inside the hotel's dimly lit lobby, the friends approached the reception desk. A weathered man with tired eyes and a hesitant demeanour greeted them. "Hello there. We're here to learn about the legend surrounding the Banshee, Michael said, his academic curiosity shining through. The receptionist's eyes widened for a moment, a flicker of fear passing across his face. Banshee, you say? He muttered, almost under his breath. Sarah leaned in, her journalistic instincts kicking in. Yes, we're researching the local folklore, and any information you could provide would be incredibly helpful. The man hesitated, glanced around as if ensuring no one was listening. I'd advise you to stay clear of such tales. They bring nothing but trouble, he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. Undeterred, Liam pressed on. We've come a long way to understand what's happening here. Please, any information you can share would be appreciated. The receptionist's eyes darted nervously. I can't say much, for the village has long been bound by a pact of silence. The Banshee's name is a forbidden whisper, and those who speak it are said to invite her wrath. Sarah, sensing an opportunity, tried a different approach. We've heard about the disappearances and cries. Do you know anything about the recent incidents near the old bridge? The man sighed, a mix of resignation and fear in his eyes. It's an old tale, mead in fear and suspicion. Best not to meddle in things that are best left alone. With that, he handed them the room keys, a silent acknowledgement that some secrets were not meant to be unravelled. The trio ascended the creaking stairs to their rooms, each step accompanied by the unsettling awareness that the villagers harboured a collective silence, guarding a truth they dared not utter. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the village as Sarah and Liam set their plan into motion. The air was thick with anticipation as they ventured out late at night, taking on the roles of a bickering couple on the verge of a breakup. The desolate streets whispered with the echoes of the staged argument, reaching a crescendo near the old bridge. Liam, his heart pounding with both fear and excitement, walked away from Sarah, disappearing into the shadows. The cries of the Banshee Siobhan echoed through the air, drawing him closer to the ancient structure. As he approached, he spotted a figure bent over in the shadows, weeping. An empathetic instinct made him approach, attempting to console the distressed soul. Hey, are you all right? He asked, his voice filled with a mix of genuine concern and acting. The woman stood up, revealing a tear-streaked face. Just leave me alone, as she ran off down the road. Liam gave a long sigh of relief and disappointment. Liam continued towards the bridge, a sense of foreboding settling over him. He heard the distant cries again, but this time his attention was drawn to a bluish glow weaving through the trees in the woods beyond. Determined to catch a glimpse, Liam sprinted towards the ethereal figure, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Suddenly, something grabbed him from behind, sending him sprawling to the ground. He felt an unseen force, like a vice, pinning him in place. Panic surged as he looked up, and there she was, Siobhan, the Banshee, in her ghastly ethereal form. Her face, half rotted away from decay, contorted into a grotesque expression. Her flowing gown seemed to be made of mist, billowing behind her as she let out a piercing scream. Leave this place. Liam's world went black, and the next thing he knew, he awoke in the hotel room, disorientated and surrounded by concerned faces. I'm out. I want the first ticket home, he shouted, his voice trembling with fear. Arguments ensued as Michael and Sarah tried to reason with Liam, but his terror was palpable. He felt haunted by the memories of the encounter with Siobhan. The hotel room now felt suffocating, a tangible reminder of the supernatural forces at play. A few hours later, in the dimly lit hotel room, Dr. Michael Brennan and Sarah O'Connor huddled over a table scattered with maps, folklore books, and hastily scribbled notes. The weight of their investigations pressed upon them, and the echoes of Liam's terrified departure still lingered in the air. Sarah, her skepticism evident, broke the silence. Are we sure about this Banshee, Michael? Liam's been through a lot. Maybe he just got spooked by the legends. Michael sighed, his brow furrowed with concern. I understand your doubts, Sarah, but the legends and the village's history, they all point to something supernatural. Liam's encounter might just be the proof we need. We can't afford to underestimate the folklore. Sarah nodded, acknowledging the possibility. Okay, Assuming there's truth to this Banshee legend, how do we catch her? What's our plan? Michael leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in thought. Banshees are elusive, but they have vulnerabilities. The legend suggests they're most powerful in places of deep emotional distress, like the old bridge. We need to create an environment that draws her out and find a way to restrain her. Sarah raised an eyebrow. How do you plan to restrain a supernatural being? Michael half cracked a smile. That's where the old tales become a bit murky. Some suggest using sacred objects. Others say cold iron. It's all trial and error at this point. But one thing the folklore never talks about is if the Banshee has ever gone after another woman. Their discussion stretched into the night, plans evolving and strategies taking place. As they delved deeper into the folklore, the lines between reality and the legend blurred. The Banshee, if real, remained a formidable mystery. Michael suggested they get some sleep to renew their energy, ready for tomorrow's plans. In the hushed stillness of the night, Dr. Michael Brennan lay in a restless slumber, his dreams haunted by the spectre of the Banshee. Suddenly, he was jolted awake, feeling the subtle movement of his bedcovers. Startled, he turned to see Sarah, her naked form climbing into bed with him. "I don't want to be alone tonight, Michael," she whispered, her voice a delicate plea. Concerns etched across his face. Michael hesitated. "Are you sure about this, Sarah?" She looked into his eyes with vulnerability that seemed genuine. "Yes, I need you, Michael." They embraced in the darkness, the weight of the supernatural investigation and the foreboding presence of the Banshee hanging heavy in the air. As the night unfolded, Michael's guard lowered, believing in the authenticity of Sarah's vulnerability. After a while, Sarah looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "Do you find me beautiful?" she asked, her voice taking on an otherworldly echo. Without hesitation, Michael replied, "Yes, I always have." Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Sarah's face contorted, her features twisting into a grotesque mask of decay. Hollow sockets replaced her once warm eyes, and her flesh began to wither away. The room filled with a sickening stench, and the air grew heavy with malevolence. It wasn't Sarah, it was Siobhan, the Banshee. In a deceitful guise, a blood-curdling wail erupted from her, echoing through the village and sending an icy chill through anyone who heard it. The spectral cry carried the weight of centuries, a lament for the souls ensnared by the curse. The villagers, stirred from their slumber, felt the oppressive presence of the Banshee, and an air of dread settled over the village. In the wake of the deceit, Michael grappled with the realization that the supernatural forces at play were more cunning and elusive than he could ever have imagined. The trap, intended for Siobhan, had become a snare for the hunters. "I'm out," Michael declared, exhaustion etched across his face. "I never want to see that face again." Sarah, undeterred, pleaded with him. "Give me one more night. Michael, I have a plan." "No, I can't. Sarah, I'm a nervous wreck. I need to go." "Okay, then wait one day for me at the airport," Sarah suggested, determination in her eyes. That night, a young man, tears staining his face, muttered grievances under his breath as he approached the old bridge. The distant weeping grew louder as he drew closer. In the shadows, a woman of breathtaking beauty cried. The man, compelled by her enchantment, asked if she was okay. "I just broke up with my fiancé," she replied, her tears glistening. They walked together for a while, and when Siobhan, disguised as a beautiful woman, spoke in a tender voice, "Do you find me beautiful?" The man quickly replied, "You're okay." Shocked, Siobhan questioned, "No man can resist my beauty." The man smiled. "I'm not a man," as Sarah removed her disguise. Surprisingly, Siobhan didn't transform into the Banshee. Instead, she laughed. "It's been a long time, my dear, since anyone could refuse me. You have eased my pain, but only slightly. Now, in this brief respite, you need to leave. For when I once again hunger, I care not for man or woman. In fact, a woman's soul is much more satisfying." Sarah, unsure how to confront such a powerful force, briskly walked away, taking one last look at the bridge before leaving. The pathway ahead was dark and foggy. After a few minutes, she looked bewildered. The bridge loomed again. Did she take a wrong turn? Crossing it, she ran, but the bridge appeared up ahead once more. She was trapped in some mystical loop. Suddenly, she heard crying, but it wasn't the soft sobbing of a woman. It was the anguished wails of men. Then more and more, until it became a cacophony. Intrigued, she looked into the trees and saw silhouettes of men on their knees, weeping, the victims of Siobhan. The noise became deafening. Siobhan appeared, looking on in glee. Ah, a woman's soul is far more satisfying. Sarah realized she had unwittingly become ensnared in the cycle, witnessing the eternal torment of Siobhan's victims. The bridge, once an escape route, now became her prison. The Banshee revelled in the perpetual anguish she inflicted, her laughter echoing through the haunted forest. The supernatural forces had outsmarted the hunter, and Sarah found herself trapped in a nightmarish loop, forever entwined with the haunting souls of the forbidden forest. And if you're still looking to fulfill your thirst for more horror, don't forget to check out this next video, unless of course you're frozen with fear already.